everybody. Welcome to Poetry is Normal Presents at the Normal Public Library. I'm Kathleen Kirk. I'm one of the poetry programmers here at the library. And Poetry is Normal Presents is our guest poet series. Tonight, Poetry is Normal presents Barbara Harris Leonhard, reading from her book, Three Penny Memories, a Poetic Memoir. We're very, very glad to have Barbara here from Missouri, virtually. And I want to also thank our library director, John Fisher, who is broadcasting for us tonight, and the Normal Public Library Foundation, which supports this and other programming at the library. But Barbara, we're just so delighted you could be with us tonight. And your book, which
Yes.
I have read, you call a poetic memoir.
Right.
And so I'm very interested in that. And I want you to be able to tell us anything about yourself and anything about the individual poems that you want to tell us as you read. But your poems are themselves very, very forthcoming in this genre you call the poetic memoir. So I'm very interested in learning more about that. Was it half poetry, half memoir? How does it work? And because I'm aware from reading prose memoirs that the writers sometimes talk about how memory has mixed in their accounts. I had two sort of formal questions, just general formal questions that maybe you'll address as you read the individual poems. I wondered if any of the autobiographical details ever change for the sake of art. You don't have to answer now, just if you notice it as you're reading. Change for the sake of the art or the storytelling, or do they stay pretty strictly factual? And my second question is, how does the imagination, another way of looking at this maybe, how does the imagination support memory in this kind of writing, the poetic memoir? And then the content-related question, you so poignantly ask right on the back of the book, that it sort of grabs you, do you love your mother? Because this book is so much about the relationship with the mother. So Barbara Harris Leonhard, turning it over to you.
Thank you. Happy National and World Poetry Day and first day of spring. First, I'd like to say thank you to Kathleen and John and for organizing this event, and for Normal Public Library in Illinois to support authors, and the Normal Public Library Foundation for all of this opportunity I have. Your questions are really good. I started writing this book after Mom died. She died in 2016, and I around that time I set up a WordPress blog. So I was kind of writing, and then during the pandemic, I had an accumulation of poems, and I wanted to put it together in a book. And I started a storyboard where I originally just wanted to write a whole prose memoir. So I signed up for a course called Memoir Writing Inc. online, and learned about elements that would help me make a good memoir and help me think of ways to organizing my work. But I just kept wanting to write the poetry. It all came out in poetry. So there are other poetic memoirs that I found by poets, and so one by Walter Bargan here in Missouri, My Other Mother's Red Mercedes, about his mother who had Alzheimer's. And there's a list of them. I should have drawn up my list, but and I think Tracy Smith also wrote a poetic memoir. She was the National Poet Laureate. When you write memoir, you're always trying to figure out about how imagination works with it, and the art and the facts. And there were just two or three things I twisted around a little bit. Like I kept it to me and my mom. I didn't even mention my siblings' names or names of the facilities she lived in. And it's, I took credit for some things that my brother and his wife helped me actually do. So, for example, one day, one of Mom's rings ended up missing. She said a girl took it. So, I said I got imitation jewelry or what I did, but actually it was really family. So, but because it would just lack the unity for me to go in, twisting it all the facts around that really didn't matter who did it, So there things like that I did, and my sister Martha and I helped my mom a lot with the babies. Mom had 7 kids, and she had 4 in diapers at one point, so she needed she needed help because she almost died with the last baby. And so she had a nurse come every day for a year, and I would go home from school at age 10 and, help with baby care, cooking, folding diapers. And I could swear that I pinned a diaper to my brother Christopher, and my sister claims she did it. And so I don't know. Things like that, you know, things like that. But most of it is as best as I can, to my memory, to bring this whole story to life for everybody else. And and imagination in a memoir, the imagination, we don't make up stuff for a memoir. We don't reimagine a life or anything like that. But I think what every writer does is try to bring in imagery. What imagery comes to mind with this feeling that I have? Like I saw myself as the morning hawk, the moonlit owl. So the imagination comes in with how I form the poems and how I drape them in images. So so it's I think memoir writing is an art in unto itself, and some people say now that I should actually write it in prose in a novel, but I don't know.
Well, thank you. Thanks for letting me know more about that and letting all of us know. So, let's hear some poems.
Okay, thanks. So, Three Penny Memories tells about my story about my care for my mother, who was navigating Alzheimer's. I was the oldest daughter, second oldest, and always her helper. So some of the poems will show that. When I heard she was coming to Columbia, Missouri, I said, "Pick one child, Mom." She picked me. I called my favorite uncle to tell him, it was her brother, all about it. And even though I sounded all excited and happy, he said, there was this long pause, and he said, "Barbara Ann, do you love your mother?" And it was like, it took me aback and shocked me and kind of was like a moment of illumination, like, oh my gosh, do I? Why did he ask that? And it left me perplexed. But overall, I think it was a question to help me consider whether I was helping her out of love or obligation. And I thought, about my mom and how we were always in a dance, sometimes in flight. Mothers and daughters can rub heads. The poems speak of grief, abandonment, fear, loss, and mother wounds that we each shared. It's about our connections and disconnections across the span of our love story, which spans through light, dust, and echo. So that's the 3 parts of my book. And I should have said, my publisher, when she got the book and she was reading the whole manuscript, she wrote to me and said, "This is like reading a novel." She actually said that because of the way I organized the poems, and there is quite a strong story, and it's in 3 main parts, 3 acts. So, is it taboo to doubt your love for an ailing parent? So I started grief therapy as soon as before she moved here, actually. And, I think that helped me. So to get into the book, the book is about grief, really. Francis Weller in The Wild Edge of Sorrow says, Bringing grief and death out of the shadows is our spiritual responsibility and our sacred duty. By doing so, we may be able to feel our desire for life once again and remember who we are, where we belong, and what is sacred. And Maya Angelou said, "There's no greater agony than burying an untold story." And so I felt compelled to write this story about me and my mom. So I'll go ahead and the first section of the book is called Light. It's about mainly my growing up, my relationship with my mom, but also a look back into her youth and some of her challenges and her grief. Joseph Campbell says, in the hero's journey, one goes to the darkest place, and that's where healing occurs. And, this memoir might make people feel like, oh, she had such a hard life with her mother or something. But, overall, our family life was really great. But in this book, I'd go deep into the crevasse of the heart because, as Michael Mead says, to grow up, one must grow down. So the first section is a rich spectrum of light. Where does our love story begin? How does it laugh? How does it cry? What is the love of a mother for her daughter or a daughter for her mother? The first poem I'd like to read is Mother's Light. Mother's light guides me to her wound. I descend into her balefire. Birth scrapes a scar on my neck. I cleave to her, suckle a loss. As soon as I am born, I start saying goodbye. Nothing lasts except scars. Love makes me her namesake, her likeness and miniature, her wound's creation, my parents' elixir. They raise their grail. 2. When a baby's born, all mothers sigh in unison, a butterfly effect, rippling into all mother souls, then to the planets and stars, searching for names. My grandmothers and great-grandmothers were generous with births. Most had 6 or 7. There were tragedies. The 2 baby sisters mom lost, creating a hole in grandmother's Lillian's soul that mother could not fill. The wound of the mother becomes the wound of the daughter. My mother felt abandoned by her mother, just as her mother felt abandoned by her baby daughters. Grief is a shared malady. It drains the pond. No amount of tears can repair the hemorrhage. Healing is not always glorious. Though light guides and softens pain, it can singe as a wildfire. Creation of life and love is as chaotic as star birth. So in the first part of the book, one thing I have to cover is when I was 6, I came down with measles and encephalitis. Mom told me to go upstairs and get her something. And when I was upstairs in her bedroom, my legs gave out and I had to get downstairs somehow by tumbling or whatever, sliding the best way I could down the stairs. And she didn't believe that I couldn't walk, but soon I couldn't talk. I couldn't eat anything solid. I couldn't stretch my arms out from my body. I was just hauled around everywhere, and I don't remember all the time it took, except that she said that I went into a coma for 30 days. And when I woke from the coma, I could talk, but I couldn't walk. So I went home in a wheelchair. So I have some poems about that in the book, but This Brittle Seed is a poem I wrote about learning to walk again. I taught myself how to walk at age 7 because my friends were outside playing and I wanted to play with them. So I think that was a miracle for me, My body a cage, only eyes for doors. My arms contorted branches twist in shadows. Voices, hollow sounds call from the dinner table. My legs, dead trunks, hold me to the couch. A view to other children, dancing pansies and violets, their blooms outstretched to gather rays. Each day, a storm clashes in my core to trigger Genesis. Lightning misfires. Mother's tunes carry me to the clouds. My lips mute my longing. Cries muffle in my throat. Each wail, the language of stones, falls on deaf ears. I cannot move. I'm still in here. Don't forget the light inside this frail seed, afflicted with blight. I'm stuck in mud, too dense for birth, too turbid for food. No gardener to churn the soil to feed me air. I'm buried. New blooms, swallowed in violet and pink, dance on my grave. Beckon, come and play, the day's divine. I claw my way out of the stiff core, muck and stone, into a blinding light. My arms and fingers unfold into new green. My tiny legs stretch into roots, holding my core as it sways in buoyant breeze that warms my face. A flower can't remain as a seed forever. It casts its casing aside in a mighty battle to forge a life. Even the brittle seed can bloom. For this one, hope was not a loss. So I told you a little bit about being mom's little mommy. So here's a poem about that year. Let me take a quick drink. Mom's little mommy. 1. Mom has 3. One more 5 years later, then births twins under hypnosis. 1 year later, her 7th emerges, a hefty boy. She almost dies at 34. I'm just 10, the eldest daughter. My sister and I, little mummies and maids. 2. Mom's laborious healing. She's the helpless observer. Our commotion theatrics for her amusement. So many diapers, cloth back then. The rinsing in buckets, the washing, drying, folding. The pinning to babies. Sorry, some accidents. Bottles to sterilize, food to prepare. My sister and I queue up the babies. 1 spoon in, 1 spoon out. I move on. My sister follows. 1 bottle in, 1 bottle out. Part 3. I wait my baby siblings to rock and to love them. Then one day, his tiny lips part. The 7th says, Mama. Mother's face falls, the sound Mama, a bittersweet reminder and foreboding. I run outside to water my flowers, the soil dry, undernourished, my violets dry of tears. Mom's birth month flower, my black thumb. So I didn't know at that time that I myself was infertile. Okay. So I'm going to read another poem about the infertility, but just taking them in turn here. Those years, I was mom's little helper, so I did a lot with mom to cook and help out. And during this memoir course, we were asked to write something about a family member as food. And I thought about all the food my mother prepared, but I didn't think of her so much as food, but as the cookbook with the wire spine. So this poem was nominated for publication of the month of August 2021 for Spill Words. It's called Cooking a Life with a Wire Spine. The recipe book that Mom assembled in her own hand. The front cover missing, the coffee-stained pages, some partly dislodged from the braided wire spine. Recipes harvested from lineages stuck together by spilled batter. mistakes, lessons learned the hard way, trial and error until you got it right, without burning your hands, without blood splatter. Mom, a complex feast of sour and sweet, had her edge, bitter black coffee. If provoked, she whistled steam and blew her top. Like when I started shaving my legs, dared to wear her lipstick, even worse, eyeshadow and mascara, worse yet, miniskirts and halter tops. I took her as she was, neither gluten-free, nor fat-free, nor sugar-free. She was pie crust made with lard, roast beef trimmed with fat, the crisp skin on the holiday bird, the full plate, no waste. You didn't hide the scrambled eggs behind the radio. You eat it all or you don't eat, finish your plate. She served us portions Dad could eat. It's a sin to have skinny kids. She made wait, no, wait, the dimples, the pillowy loaves of white bread, hot from the oven, smothered in sticky strawberry kisses. She transformed want into wonder, magically feeding 7 insatiable kids on a budget of $100 a month, turning our wines into hot bouillon, stretching homemade pizza onto 12 cookie sheets. Mom's back, tempered cast iron, a spiral wire holding it all together, these recipes of holy perfection. When you cook, you go by the book. I proceeded only with a nod of her head and learned not to overmix the muffins, or bake in a naked pan, or cut into the sacred loaf before it's ready. No one wants a mismeasured life, a cake that falls, crumbs in your frosting. Taste as you go. Don't dump it all in. Too much pepper chokes the throat, like Virginia Slims do, so I dared not smoke, or God forbid do pot. She would know and rise up like yeasty dough on a steamy summer day to shuck and can me. I watch creamer swirl in my cup and wipe another spill from a book, a page of the recipe book, with the wire spine that binds me to her, and wonder when, if ever, I can begin to date, or learn to drive, or get my own car without her coming to a full boil. And
You're definitely answering my question, Barbara, about how you use the imagery, how imagination is working with memory. It's lovely to hear you read. And I do want to remind our listeners that if you find you have questions for Barbara, if you want to type them into the chat there, we'll check in with you a little later in the program. I want to hear more about this childbirth by hypnosis. But keep reading. We'll hear more about that later.
I was only 10. I just said, what's hypnosis? But yeah, and also if anyone who has the book wants me to read a poem they didn't hear, I will read it. So when I found out I was infertile, I think I was in graduate school at that time, living here in Missouri, and when I told my mom, she was devastated. But I had to comfort her more than she could comfort me. But I wrote this poem. I miscarried a baby, and I didn't really tell a lot of people about it. But I wrote this letter to my baby that I miscarried. It's called "Ode to the Embryo That My T-Shaped Uterus Miscarried." I want to read it because it's in contrast to my mother, who had 7 kids easily. And there's a poem in the book about her secret pregnancy, based on her mistake in college, leading to her having to have her pregnancy terminated against her will, I'm pretty sure. But so this is in stark contrast to that. Ode to the embryo that my T-shaped uterus miscarried. You left my broken womb as the bloody remains of what was never to come. I still feel you in the waves, the flow of my sacral river, your tears, your fears I've abandoned you. No, honey, no, I'll never forget you. The T-shaped womb couldn't hold your brilliance, your tiny, beautiful self washed away. Your light sparkles in each of my cells, your core, your forever home. My essence, my creative labor, in verse and art. Everyone says, forget the dead. I can't leave my baby screaming in her forever crib, or my young miss alone in harm's way on Grafe's edge. Though never delivered into my arms, you shelter in my womb of wanting. Each night, I press my scar against a pillow to swaddle you in your mother's heat. In dreams, we share the sacred skiff, and together wind up and up out of the wake of the wound into a newborn sky. So the second part of the book is called Dust. This is where the trauma of Mom, you can't live with me comes in. Dust shows Mom's disintegration and my denial, and dust is ash, and that's what's left of one's vitality. So when she moved here, I realized that she was weaker than I thought she would be, and she needed, living with me would be a danger to her because of the way my house is. She would have no social life, and I had to work, and my husband worked, and she couldn't be alone. So this poem, Erosion, talks about the disintegration. Erosion. A garden once planted in spring, bearing life in shade and sun, now tangled with weeds and blight. A hardy yield, once sustained by dew and noon rains, now forgets in autumn light. Basket of gold, having bloomed and stretched for sun, now shriveled, scorched by drought. Honeysucker, a trespasser in flora, once nurtured monarchs and bees. Once a bounty of bliss, now wild bramble on depleted soil. Wisdom of soils and seedlings now crumbles to dust, her secret garden. My mom, I have a lot of poems in here about her character and resilience. This poem, Mom's Never Wrong. You know, all the while with care for her, even though she was wrong, she was never wrong, and I couldn't tell her she was wrong. So I had to always walk the balance of our realities, her reality versus my reality. Anyway, Mom's never wrong. 1. How are you? Mom's new doctor, attentive to her. Deaf to the daughter, not his patient, she's suspect. Must sign forms, get proper permission, HIPAA, hooray. I am just fine, Mom scowls, crosses her arms. Standing behind her, I shake my head. No. Mom, your leg, it hurts, right? I look at the doctor. Not at all. Mom suddenly stoic. You fell, remember? Outside the mall. I'm just fine. I mouth, no. The doctor listens. Does this hurt? Ouch, stop that. What's the year? Who really cares? Who's the president? Don't know. Nixon? What's your address? Check your files. Is today Monday? Don't you know? My heart sinks. The same test results as the last 2 tests showed she has Alzheimer's. 2. What's wrong here? He looks concerned. Mom's feet stink with shredding, dried skin, layers of it. I'm shocked, embarrassed, missed the signs. A type 2 diabetic, she's not doing the required foot care. I taught her, but she forgot. I failed to do it for her. I failed. 3. In the car, she asks again, "Where are we going?" "To the drugstore." "Why?" "For some supplies." "Why?" "For your feet," I replied again softly. "They're just fine." All of a sudden, bam, 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 she clobbers me in heavy traffic. I maneuver through the thwacks. She won't recall, but I will. The very day we almost died. I am her guide, even to God. So that's the heartache of Alzheimer's. So then, senior alert in this poem. So I always tried to make it to her appointments with her, and there were many. But I have sometimes had to hire an aide who would pick mom up and take her. But mom would forget, and she would convince the director of the facility to take her somewhere. I would not be told because I'm only the daughter, and everybody treats a person with dementia or Alzheimer's like they're normal, even though their daughter tells them, "Don't give her rides." I always give her rides. They just don't listen. So this is called senior alert. 1. High rent but no major expenses. A clean environment, convenience, 2 meals daily, laundry facilities across the hall, parties, bingo, outings, but no more. She's changed. May wander, get lost, face injury. 2. I'm always torn. Mom or career, mom or marriage, mom or my own sanity. The ungrateful daughter. I make arrangements for mom's doctor's appointments. The dreaded call, "Where's your mom?" The aide arrives to transport mom, but mom's gone missing. Has taken off, we are told, with the director who abandons mom outside the doctor's building on a busy avenue. Mom, alone and confused, gripping her walker and purse. For Pete's sake, I give instructions. Please, no rides. I have them covered. They don't listen. Mom is convincing. Thinks I'm forgetting. 3. Fortunately, she survives. Finds her way into the building, up the elevator to the second floor, down the hall to the doctor's office, all by herself. Begs the question, am I needed? When I find her in the waiting room, I'm rankled iron. Mom looks unfazed. What's up, hun? She's found, I'm lost. Okay, it's 7:33. Should I start cutting out some poems? I'm still in the second. I'd like to read the whole book. Do you want me to?
We're doing all right.
Okay.
Do we want to pause and see if there are any questions?
Oh, we could, or
check in with John.
Yeah.
I want to thank you. I'm in a similar position with my parents now, always going to their appointments with them, meeting them there or taking them, depending on the situation. So I have a lot of sympathy, and I admire your patience and your sense of humor as you read it, because I know the situation contained a lot of frustration for you. So,
yeah. Thank
John,
you.
do you see any questions or comments?
Thank you. No, I don't. There's great positive reaction in the chat here in support of Barb. I am personally enjoying listening to this reading, so I appreciate that. No questions as of yet.
Okay. All right, thanks, John. So
I'll just go ahead then. Or okay, this poem's called Irish Spring. It's important. I want to read this poem. It's a little bit long, but it shows my inner turmoil with how I was raised and then how I had to be with her. She always raised us kids to have honor and integrity, but I felt like as I cared for her, I had to break her rules. Irish Spring she's Irish. She was raised. Her heritage is Irish mainly, Montgomery is her main name. My dad is Scott, so I'm Scott Irish. Irish Spring. 1. We learn quickly it doesn't pay to lie to mom. The twitch of a lip, the tremor of the tongue, the glance down to the left, the hands folded at the chest. She knows. After all, she had dreams to be a cop, an avid reader of Agatha Christie, Ellery Queen, and a fan of Perry Mason and Columbo. She can smell beer on your breath 5 feet away, detect a light kiss goodbye under the porch light, a scent of a man on a blouse. Those of us who tell tales recall the rancid taste of Irish Spring soap, that green, stone-tough bar sitting beside the kitchen sink, handy. She holds the head down, with vigor scrubs the toilet bowl clean, the stubborn, hard water ring, the stench of deceit. The truth sayer, she declares our innocence. A young mother accuses me of not changing her baby, suffering from diarrhea. Mom knows I won't leave a baby to blister red, especially for that young widow finally out on a date. That integrity bred into me by Mom's Irish Spring temper. Character hard-earned, yet pliant, capable of slipping through the fingers like a wet soap bar. I learned to keep my hands clean and dry, or else. 2. I struggle with Mom's lapsing memory, her life dissolving before me, my sorrow, an overflowing dishwasher, a treacherous walk on a sudsy floor. All the calls to Medicare, Social Security, her insurance companies, their requirement to get her permission to speak to them, to do her business in her presence. I send copies of the POA, doesn't matter. Finally, I cave, resorting to my own landline for my lies. I claim my mom. Well, Mom and I do share a name, Barbara. Your voice sounds so young. I'm often told that. My throat gargles suds. 3. I come to changing my character in Mom's whodunits. I'm now her co-conspirator, her Dr. Watson. The clues do not add up for me, but she's the master detective. As Mom's memory fails, she tells me about her trip to Australia. She's never visited there. I play along. How was your trip? I commiserate with her when she claims the aid never comes despite the sign-in sheet at the front desk. Certainly I worry that she will solve the mystery of who secretly crosses the Irish Spring soap off her weekly shopping list. Okay. This is called The Caregiver's Craft. I wrote it to because I felt that I wasn't really adding up, doing what I should do for her. I think all caregivers feel this way. You wonder, am I doing the right thing for my loved one? Is this a mess I'm making? I wasn't sure. So Mom liked to make quilts, and she made us all kinds of things when we were growing up. And so I thought about her always liking to do crafts. And so this is the caregiver's craft. I'm only a human, Mom, seeking perfection in my care for you, weaving the yarn, like you taught and retaught. I keep forgetting to practice. You say my head is always in my books. I anchor my hook into a rhythm in each row, putting the colors of your care in place, counting the stitches like the meter in a poem, casting off, crocheting my lines. Each stitch a thought, a memory, a discovery. What am I crafting for you, comfort or chaos? Will everything turn out? I study the creation, pleased. Some rows proclaim symmetry, coherence to form. I revel in the virtuosity, clarity of hue, as though I've hooked into radiance. But other rows meander like a stream, wandering around the bedrocks, threads in some rows, weeds tangled in the mud of past despair. Memories to be forgotten, words that should have been left unsaid, plans gone awry, fitful dreams, diminished hope, as though gripping the hook cripples my thinking, my loving. Where am I heading, Mom? Do I have it right yet? Your care and well-being? Being a doting daughter, daunting. I'm only a human, unraveling our knots. So, this next one goes back to the mother wounds. This poem was nominated for a Pushcart Prize last year. So we'll find out this year if I've won anything. So a hysterectomy saved Mom's life as she almost died giving birth to her 7th child. I had a hysterectomy when the DES problems complicated things to the point where they thought I had uterine cancer. So it saved my life. And since Mom and I were always in the dance, I put the title this way: Mom and I play lassos with our hysterectomy scars. 1. Mom's scar can stretch from any corner of the country to mid-Missouri. A thick rope of mother wound reaching for my root. Her scar deepens as age swells her skin, draping the wound on her lap. I'm tethered to her lesion. The grief rubs my neck raw. Out of her wound spills her love. Her lava shapes my landscape, devours me. Creates loss as all that I can mother is burned away. While mother earns her scar, mine is prescribed by diethylstilbestrol. The motherless are called orphans. What are the childless called? I bear my hysterectomy scar for what? To spare my unborn, my trauma? 2. The unmothered can mother the one who will be childless. Bearing children fills the chasm of her mother's inattention. My broken womb is the crypt holding the soul of my unborn daughter. Mom has 7, so she wins the gold. I have hopes, but don't qualify. Our scars are vaults, hers for the renowned, mine for the unnamed. Her scar nurtures a bountiful garden. Mine stocks a still room of recalled goods. 3. One who is childless can still mother the unmothered. Her scar says to me, don't forget me. Mine says to her, stay close. Hers forms a cane. Mine ties bundles of blankets to keep her warm. Hers is the IV torn from her wrist at her end of days. Mine is the string of pearls that matches her last Easter dress. So the last section is called Echo. Echo means to rebound and come back, right? So in death, our soul returns as memories. So memories rebound. I had to move Mom to assisted living. She was in independent living in Section 2. In Section 3, it was going to cost $8,000 a month to keep her in independent living. So I talked with her, and she agreed that she had to move, but she felt I betrayed her, I think. So this section is, what have you done to me, Barbara Ann? And I thought, oh, maybe I'll have more respite here. I won't need to worry about her medicine, whether she's showering. There's a doctor there. There are nurses, right? Okay. But it was a house of sand. Okay, I need water. 1. A new welcoming residence. They give her furniture, show her around, assign her a seat in a pleasant dining area. Lots of activities like bingo and movies. Full-time nursing, her med secure. I feel hopeful, grateful for respite. I'm kidding myself. The next day, dreaded news. Your mom fell. Classes get covered. I gather mom and her walker for a day at urgent care in the ER. The hours pass sluggishly. I observe other daughters with their elderly parents. What would these parents do without their children? What will I do? I'm childless. 2. The usual case. Mom's unharmed, but we're exhausted. Finally, we're back at the new place. Nurses and social workers arrive to make her acquaintance. Too much commotion fills the room. Mom needs rest and definitely clean clothes. Please help her, I ask politely, handing nurses clothing. I hear a scuffle in the bathroom. Mom groans in pain. What's going on? One nurse snaps, she's being combative. My tsunami rises. Words slap rapidly. You will not talk to her or about her in that tone. This place sucks. I lose confidence, complain to management. 3. Still more problems with the same contrary nurse. If she falls, we can't help. She's too heavy. Back to management. What's assisted living? I don't mince words. Do her right. That's your job, or she moves. Whenever I arrive, they fall silent, waiting for my tsunami. Fine with me. I feel like we need a light poem. This one's called Mom and Elvis. I mean, the place did, the facilities Mom was in, they did good job getting programs and parties. That was nice. So Mom and Elvis. Mom had a thing for young guys. So this was kind of funny. Mom's place prepares. Tables are set. Lights turned low. The king arrives with his band and backup singer. Elvis still lives. 50s hair waves, thick sideburns, svelte sexy style, thick slick pants, shiny colored shirt, open just so, a V chest revealed, blue suede shoes, deep brown eyes, like his voice, a tinge sad. He ain't nothing, just a hound, looking for trouble. Mom smiling coyly, falling in love. Good for her. I'm no fan, not this one. Death mimics life. This guy's flirtatious, just like Elvis, making the rounds. Women are clapping, pick me, waving their hands. He's behind me, my skin's kind of crawling. He leans over. Cameras are snapping. Go to Mom, please go away. He reads minds, moves to Mom, she's loving it. Brought to life by the dead, all shook up. And the last poem I'll read is, it was voted Publication of the Month on Spill Words, February 2022. It's about letting go. And I thought about, in the memoir course, we learned to put our memoirs and things into a kind of context or container. And I thought about how Marie Kondo and her decluttering, might help me here. I call this one, Marie Kondo cleans my purse at Starbucks. KonMari sees me at Starbucks. My purse is spilling over on the counter. May I help? She gathers me up like I'm antique lace washed too many times. Before she begins, she whispers, hello, the house. I am safe. May I enter? She pokes through my purse, pulling out the deck of cards Mom once carried in her own purse. A heavy bag of Mom's pennies to redeem for cash, her checkbook. The messy calendar that listed her appointments alongside my own. The quilt she made, now falling apart. A cookbook compiled in her own hand. KonMari extracts other artifacts, laying them gently on lined up tables. People gather. My eyes bleed. The extra large pair of panties Mom made me wear to Sunday school. The wash still not done. A half-used bottle of diethyl stilbestrol she was prescribed to prevent spotting when I was in utero. The tricycle she rode around town at age 3 because her mother never watched her. My cancer scares scattered on the bottom of the purse like cookie crumbs. The scabs inflicted by her compression stockings I failed to wash one last time. The clump of tissue I miscarried swaddled in my inner pocket. Her hysterectomy scar, my hysterectomy scar, entwined on a spool. My T-shaped uterus clenching a half-used packet of Puffs Plus. A dog-eared photo of Mom, a mirror reflecting who I want to be. KonMari has me hold each item one last time, saying, "Thank you, tiny soul, for sharing your life. I am grateful." She teaches me how to fold joy 3 times, how to throw out what I can no longer carry. Thank you. And now if people have questions or if they would like me to read anything else, if they have the book and know of a poem they'd like to hear.
Okay, we'll have John check on that. Thank you so much for reading from your book. This has really been wonderful. I'm amazed at the blend in this poem that you just closed with is an example of it, of how the deep and sad and in some ways horrific things are there, but with your sense of humor too. That it's like a Mary Poppins kind of purse. All these things keep coming out of it that you're letting go of. And I read that book too, and it helped me quite a bit clean out my closet. I haven't done this yet. And I was hoping you'd read the Elvis poem too.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Our library displays right now include the Oscar-nominated movies, and even though the Oscars have already happened, now the DVDs are available.
Oh, right.
So Elvis has been on my mind because that movie is in our library. And
right.
And then the other way your poem is resonating in our physical space in our library is we just had a fiber arts show, Pins and Needles. So the poem with all the crafting and all the knitting and crocheting and weaving imagery was making me think of all the people that come to the library and are familiar with those crafts that were so long practiced by and developed by women, and then and now they're back. So.
Right. Mom she made so many things. One question people ask, I forgot to say why I named my book Three Penny Memories, or did I say?
No, tell us.
So when Mom she was at a facility where she was moved to a facility where she died. So she had hospice care, or like palliative care and hospice care there. And I was with my brothers and we went to grab some lunch. And as I got out of the car, I saw 3 shiny, perfectly brand new pennies lined up perfectly right by my feet. And I thought, what are the chances this would happen? Because it was just too incredible. If you drop pennies, they're not going to line up. They're put there intentionally. On a hot day, who would take that time? And I thought, I was kind of prompted to feel something about the whole experience, that it meant something to me because Mom always wanted me to pick up pennies. And we would fight over it. I don't want to pick up the penny. And so she would like lean down with her arthritic body to pick up the penny because I wouldn't, because I thought, I don't want to pick up the penny. And I was like, something was telling me, pick up those pennies. And I refused to again. And so they were gone when we came back to the car. But she ended up dying on April 3rd.
Oh.
So it was like a foreboding or a premonition or something. So she died on April 3rd. And so I used that container of 3 a lot in my book with 3 sections. Also, I had a lot of 3-word sentences or 3-word phrases that help create some stress, actually, in some of the poems. And that was another technique I learned in the memoir class, was 3-word sentences, where you write a 10-year memoir in just 3 words per phrase, per line. And I wrote a lot of 3-word line poems or 3-word sentence poems. And then I tailored them to smooth them out a little bit. But 3 is a very magical number in many other ways. Mind, body, soul. Yeah. And when I thought about it, so I actually wrote about it on my blog, Extraordinary Sunshine Weaver on WordPress. There are recordings there of me reading poems and also essays about the book on WordPress. extraordinarysunshineweaver.blog.
Yeah, thanks for letting us know. So people who are writers and listening tonight now they know where they can find out more about you. Yeah. Thank you.
I have a YouTube.
So what?
YouTube channel. I put a couple of poems on. Yeah. Barbara Leonhard.
Yeah, that's great. John, do you see any other questions or comments for Barbara?
Yes, I wanted to point out, I'm sure you'll both head to YouTube to see the comments that are rolling in, but I wanted to point out, Barbara, some descriptions as you were reading. Your poetry is wonderful, well-crafted, heartfelt, absolutely gorgeous, stunning. And then here's a question that came in just about 10 or 15 minutes ago. Barb, did you find the humor in the situations right away, or did it take a while? And how did you balance the serious and humorous in the poems?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think I felt a lot of frustration at the time, and but don't we always kind of just shake our heads at it too? I think my brothers and sisters and I would try to find some humor, to relax ourselves. But as I was writing the poems, I actually left out a couple that were just way too sad. But I did try to balance. There are some poems I read that actually, when I'm doing public readings, people laugh, they cry. So there are other poems where people just really, I didn't know that they would laugh, so it's always a surprise. So I think intuitively I balanced it, because comedy and tragedy walk the same fence post, they dump the fence line. There's just a little bit of difference between the two. So.
Yeah, thank you. That is a great question. Thanks for giving us the insight on that. And your honesty about your frustration is wonderful in there too. And I think some of the things are genuinely funny, and some of it is also displacement laughter, where we can feel the ambivalence, we can feel the frustration and the sorrow and the grief and everything that's going on, and then if you give us a little moment of humor, it's like, what a relief. And
I think there's a fine line, and also people. I had a thought, but I don't know. I forgot what I was going to say. Yeah. Oh well. Yeah. There's Yeah. I don't know what it was. I'll think about it after we finish.
Yeah. Well, you can add a comment at YouTube. You can come back. I think.
That's right.
Well, I want to thank you again for reading. Thank you for sharing your book with us, which will go into our library collection. And thank you so much for that. John, thank you for helping us tonight. Thanks to the Normal Public Library Foundation. And thanks for all of you who joined us tonight.
Yeah. And thank you, everyone who joined. And I wish I could see your faces, but I kept it to the iPad tonight. Maybe I'll watch the YouTube stream.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, everybody. Good night.
Good Good night. Thank you.
That's it. Our stream has ended. Thank you both.